What if everything we thought we knew about September 11th was only the surface? What if the most catastrophic event in modern American history wasn't just a tragedy, but the ignition switch for something much bigger? Welcome to Time Travelers Anonymous, where the truth doesn't get buried, it gets unearthed. Today, we start with a story you've heard 1,000 times and flip it inside out. Let's begin not with a plane, but with a document. In 1996, a think tank in Washington drafted a paper. It was called A Clean Break, a new strategy for securing the realm. It wasn't written for the President of the United States. It was written for Benjamin Netanyahu, the incoming Prime Minister of Israel. But here's the twist. The authors were American: Richard Pearl, Douglas Faith, David Wurmser. All of them later took powerful positions inside the George W. Bush administration. The Clean Break document called for the removal of Saddam Hussein, the destabilization of Syria and Iran, and the rise of a dominant Israeli-American military alliance in the Middle East. 5 years later, September 11th happened, and that blueprint started playing out, almost step by step. But that's just the beginning. Chapter 1, The Air That Went Silent. The United States of America has the most powerful Air Force on Earth. Yet, on September 11th, 2001, 4 commercial planes were hijacked, and not one was intercepted in time. That morning, multiple war games were taking place. NORAD was simulating hijackings. The FAA was running radar interference drills. And during this confusion, real planes turned into weapons, and response time vanished. Why were fighters scrambled too late? Why were they sent in the wrong direction? And how did hijacked planes stay in the air for over an hour, completely unchallenged? Coincidence or cover? Chapter 2, Building 7. You've seen the towers fall, but what about the third building at 5:20 p.m., World Trade Center 7, a 47-story skyscraper, collapsed. No plane hit it, but it dropped straight down in free fall like a controlled demolition. The official story says it was caused by office fires. But more than 3,000 architects and engineers disagree. They say it's scientifically impossible. Eyewitnesses, including first responders, described explosions. Some said they were told the building would come down hours before it actually did. And then there's Larry Silverstein, the man who leased the entire complex just weeks before the attacks. He said this on camera: "We've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it." Pull it, a term widely used in demolition circles. And yet, that clip, barely ever seen. Chapter 3, The Trillions That Disappeared, September 10th, 2001. Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld stood in front of the press and said this: "The Pentagon cannot account for $2.3 trillion. Let that number sink in. $2.3 trillion. Vanished from the Department of Defense's books. The very next day, a section of the Pentagon was destroyed. Guess which section? The one investigating the missing funds. That story? Gone. Overshadowed forever. Chapter 4. The Dancing Men and the Unasked Questions. That morning, across the river in New Jersey, a group of men was seen filming the attacks, cheering, celebrating. When arrested, they were found to be Israeli nationals, working for a company later investigated for intelligence links. They were quietly deported, and the story faded. But reports confirm they were not random tourists. They were allegedly agents, monitoring events in real time. Some call it foreknowledge, others something darker. Chapter 5. The Blueprint Returns. Once the dust settled, the blueprint reappeared. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, one by one, each country named in the clean break plan was targeted. War became endless. Profits soared. And the Middle East? Shattered. All while America's surveillance state exploded and civil liberties quietly erased. But we're not done yet, because the next part of this story is where everything cracks wide open. Chapter 6. Silverstein, Asbestos, and Insurance. In 2001, Larry Silverstein secured a 99-year lease on the World Trade Center complex. The buildings were filled with asbestos, worth billions to remove. Demolition? Off the table. Too costly, too risky. Instead, Silverstein took out an insurance policy, specifically covering acts of terrorism. When the towers fell, he filed 2 claims, arguing that 2 planes meant 2 attacks. He was awarded $4.55 billion. And here's the twist. He was supposed to be at the towers that morning, but skipped it for a last-minute dermatologist appointment. Coincidence? Chapter 7. Intelligence warnings ignored. The CIA, FBI, and NSA were warned. In August 2001, the president was given a briefing titled, "Bin Laden Determined to Strike in U.S." International allies, from Germany to Israel, sent warnings. Even actor James Woods had reported a dry run weeks earlier. And yet, no alarms, no extra security, no investigation until after the towers had fallen. How? Chapter 8. Power downs and strange activity. Workers in the South Tower reported power downs in the week leading up to 9/11. Security cameras went dark. Bomb-sniffing dogs were removed. Contractors came in and out, undocumented. Then on September 11th, the buildings fell in near free-fall speed, with steel beams ejected laterally and molten metal found weeks after. Firefighters described explosions. Some heard pops, bangs, and rumbles, floor by floor. And yet, none of these claims were fully investigated. Chapter 9. Operation Northwoods Revisited. Decades earlier, the U.S. military proposed Operation Northwoods, a plan to stage terrorist attacks on U.S. soil to justify war. It was rejected. But the idea? Proven real, documented, approved by the Joint Chiefs in 1962. Could history repeat? Chapter 10. The aftermath that never ended. Since September 11th, over 1 million dead in Middle Eastern wars, over $8 trillion spent, civil liberties eroded, mass surveillance normalized, and an entire generation born into endless conflict. And who benefited? Defense contractors, oil giants, private security firms, and those who followed the clean break blueprint: Iraq, Libya, Syria, Iran. The dominoes fell, one by one. Conclusion. The questions that still echo. Was September 11th a failure of imagination or a perfectly executed opportunity? Who knew? Who allowed? Who profited? And most of all, why were so many warnings ignored? The world changed that day, but the script might have been written long before the first plane took off. This is Time Travelers Anonymous. Subscribe, because in this timeline, truth takes time to surface.